No Minecraft player ever imagined Steve would be a singer, but in the live-action adaptation, he turned into a total rock star. So, do you remember every single song Steve sings in the Minecraft movie? Even if you hadn't had the chance to watch the film yet, you've probably heard about the scene where Steve takes the other characters to his lava-roasted chicken shop and suddenly bursts into the place's theme song. Chicken. It's the first song in the movie, and when people see it for the first time, they're usually super confused by the unexpected singing and start wondering if the movie is actually a musical. Just to be clear, it's not. Steve just randomly sings throughout the story, and that's exactly what makes these scenes even funnier. But once the confusion fades, it's basically impossible to get the song out of your head. I've honestly lost count of how many times I've listened to it. And it's such a shame Steve's Chicken Place doesn't exist in real life, because if it did, the theme song alone would have made tons of people go check it out. Then again, the shop would probably get shut down after a few customers ended up in the hospital, because cooking with lava doesn't sound all that FDA approved. It's also pretty hilarious that Steve came up with a whole theme song for his restaurant, even though he lives in a world where barely anyone understands what he's saying. Can the villagers even understand the lyrics, or do they just like the beat enough to get hyped and start buying chicken? Honestly, probably yes. We all listen to songs in other languages without having a clue what they mean. And before you say Steve made up the lyrics on the spot to impress his new friends, keep in mind that Chungus, who's a piglin general, had already been to the restaurant and heard the song before, and he really liked it, since he still remembers the words. So if Steve made up the song to impress anyone, it was Chungus. Too bad their friendship didn't work out. Jack Black's character found out Chungus is actually super cruel. Still, this song is incredible, and Steve actually sang a few more that are just as hilarious and awesome throughout the movie, and we're gonna break them all down for you. So grab your popcorn and settle in wherever you like to watch your videos, because Cinewave is starting now! As we mentioned, the first song in the movie was the one about the chicken shop, but that was only the final cut in the film. In an early unfinished version, there was going to be another song right at the beginning, even before Jack Black's character traveled to the overworld, back when he was still living a miserable life working in an office. This song actually happens right in the middle of that depressing office, with Steve singing it as he pitches his idea for building a resort. Welcome to Steve's Ultimate Resort. The little model of the resort is pretty cool, and the song is even better, but his co-workers clearly hate both. Steve ends up cutting the song short, looking super embarrassed. It's a really heavy scene, and honestly makes you feel kinda bad for the guy. Then again, did he seriously think people were going to jump on board with building something called Steve's Resort, and that the best way to convince them would be by singing? In his head, he probably thought everyone would cheer and think it was a brilliant idea. The truth is, it's a real shame that this song didn't make it into the final version of the film, and for a bunch of reasons. First off, it would have happened right at the start of the movie, which would immediately let people know that Steve is the kind of character who loves to sing. That way, no one would be caught off guard by the chicken shop song, which shows up way later. Second, it highlights how much Steve has always loved using his creativity, even before ending up in the overworld, and how he struggled to be taken seriously by other adults. So, the scene that comes right after, with him building a resort in Minecraft using blocks, would have hit way harder. And third, and most important, this scene draws a really cool parallel between Steve and Malgosia, the movie's main villain. We find out that Malgosia wanted to be a dancer when she was younger, but gave up on that dream after being booed during a performance. Both Steve and Malgosia wanted to be artists, but nobody believed in them. The only difference is, Steve would never give up on his dream, while the witch ended up hating all forms of creativity after the trauma, turning into someone who crushes other people's dreams, just like the piglins who mocked her dance. It's honestly kind of sad that a song that funny and important to the story was cut, but at least we know it exists, since it ended up leaking online. A scene that good was never gonna stay hidden forever, right? Let's all cross our fingers and hope that someday they release an extended version of the movie that includes this scene and makes it 100% canon. Do you also think it would be amazing to see that actually happen? If so, drop a comment below with #song. When it comes to comedy, this song is easily one of the best. It happens when Steve, Henry, and Garrett finally go to raid the Woodland mansion to recover the Earth Crystal. Everyone expected this mission to be a huge action-packed sequence, but what actually happens is something totally unexpected. While Henry goes after the artifact, Steve and Garrett distract the pillagers living in the mansion in the most random way possible, with a song. Friendship
It's the wish you make when you're blowing out the candles on your birthday cake.
Okay, if we stop and think about it, it was kind of obvious that Steve would find another excuse to start singing, but no one expected him and Garrett to show up wearing mushroom hats and playing saxophones while rapping a birthday song. And if you're wondering whose birthday it is, that's a question no one knows the answer to. The song is short and purposely silly, since the whole point is to distract the villains in the mansion. It ends with Steve playing the saxophone in the worst way imaginable. And just to be clear, it's not that Jack Black is bad at the saxophone, he's actually great and even crushes it when he plays a toy one. The sax showing up here is actually a fun little nod to his real-life musical skills. Unfortunately, the pillagers weren't exactly fans of the performance and tossed both Steve and Garrett into an underground fight club, and that's when we get that iconic scene where Jason Momoa's character gets beaten up by a baby zombie riding a chicken. At least the performance worked. It gave Henry enough time to sneak in and steal the Earth Crystal. Though let's be real, it wasn't exactly smooth sailing from there. He still had to outrun a pillager and take on an Enderman along the way. The second to last song is hands down the saddest one, and honestly, it couldn't be anything else. It's sung when Steve decides to let his wolf Dennis move to the real world to live with Dawn.
Go now, Dennis.
It's a farewell song for the best friend Steve has ever had in his entire life. And we have to remember, as far as we know, Steve never had any friends before he ended up in the overworld. That's why he never really wanted to return to the real world, even after going years without talking to another human. Dennis completely changed Steve's life, and Steve's life changed even more after his adventure with the other main characters. The lyrics reflect this perfectly. Go now, Dennis. Change Dawn's life, Dennis. On this journey, I only thought of myself. Dennis. Yeah, he says his pet's name over and over and over again, but that's not the point. What matters is the message. After making human friends, Steve became a less selfish person. It would have been heartbreaking if Dennis had never seen his first friend again, but thankfully Steve changed his mind and decided to live in the real world too. And now here comes the controversy. Some fans feel that this decision kind of takes the meaning out of the farewell song, since it ends and then Steve immediately decides not to stay in the overworld. Others say it doesn't matter at all, because what really counts is that during the song, both the characters and the audience truly believe they'd never see each other again. What happens after that is beside the point. It's a tricky debate. Would the song and the scene where Jack Black's character decides to go back to Earth have worked better if there was a bit more space between them? There's no definitive answer to that one. The only thing we do know for sure is that you should hit that subscribe button so you can keep having fun with all the awesome videos we post every single day. Now it's time to talk about the final song in the movie. It's the least funny one, but at the same time, it's the one with the highest quality. Not an improvised bit, but an actual rock and roll track. Plus, technically speaking, it's the only full-length song Steve performs during the entire film. The song was produced by Jack Black himself, and he teamed up with some seriously talented friends to make it happen, including Dave Grohl, the founder of Foo Fighters and former drummer for Nirvana. So yeah, no one was messing around. The idea was to make an epic rock song, totally inspired by that classic 70s and 80s sound. Just like the previous song, this one actually reflects how far Steve's character has come throughout the film. Actually, it goes even further. It captures the core message of the entire movie. Never let your creativity die, even when you grow up. But it also shows that isolating yourself from the world, like Steve did, isn't the answer. After spending so long alone in his own little bubble, he finally realized there are other people out there just like him, and that it is possible to share your creativity in the real world too. Still not convinced? Just listen to some of the lyrics. I don't want to spend my life running from zombies. I was stuck like a rock way down below until you showed up, but your faith in me gave me the strength to break free. Those lines and others make it clear he was never truly happy living in the overworld. He's way better off now that he's back on Earth. What Steve needed wasn't a world made of blocks, it was friends who actually understood him. And in the end, that's exactly what he found. Who would have thought such a goofy movie could have such a meaningful message? We've picked out 2 super fun videos for you to check out. Just click the one that grabs your attention the most. Thanks for hanging with us, and see you next time.